Good morning. This recording is made for the Cook's Memorial Presbyterian Church and for the kids class. I was just told that it was for Cook's Church kids. So I was given a list of questions to answer because this class, and you all invited me to come, and your class meets the same time that we have our Sunday morning service, and being the chief priest here and the only priest, if I'm not here, then we don't do our services, and our services are important to us. So thank you for this compromise, me recording the video for you all and you all watching it at your convenience. I must say that I really like your questions. They're some of the best questions that have ever been asked. So it'll be interesting. You've asked things that most people don't ask, and I wish that people did. So you must have done some reading and some studying into Buddhism. I'd first like to clarify some of the misinformation that has been presented to you in your course materials about Buddhism. And Buddhism, we consider that there are only two main types of Buddhism. That is the Mahayana tradition, which I belong to, and the Theravadan tradition. It is sometimes referred to as Hinayana, but Hinayana is a derogatory term, and we try not to use those too much. So currently, there's only one sect or one school in the Hinayana tradition, and that is the Theravadan. And so we just call that branch of Buddhism the Theravadan school. Under Mahayana, we have a whole mess of different denominations or sects. And Zen is one of those. It is not a particularly unique branch of the tree of Buddhism. It is not a separate denomination or a separate grouping of Buddhism. It is just one of many different schools within the Mahayana tradition. Nichiren Buddhism is also one of the many different denominations in the Mahayana tradition. So Nichiren Buddhism, Zen Buddhism, Pure Land Buddhism all fall under Mahayana tradition, and those are the main denominations in the Mahayana tradition. Now in Zen, there's a couple of two or three different schools of Zen. There's two or three different denominations or schools of the Pure Land tradition. In fact, there's a differentiation based on which country Pure Land tradition is coming from. So there's Chinese Pure Land, and then there's Japanese Pure Land, and Pure Land, a variety of other countries as well. So there's two, Mahayana, Theravada. Now Tibetan Buddhism is kind of unique. We wouldn't consider it its own school or its own denomination of Buddhism. It falls under the Mahayana tradition, although there's certain characteristics of it that are Theravadan, mainly because it's monastic. And also, it is kind of unique in the fact that Buddhism is being overlaid onto a shamanistic type practice. The original practices of the Tibetan people thousands of years ago was more animistic and shamanistic, and Buddhism just kind of overlaid on top of that. So, and that's an important point to understand, is that Buddhism is really adaptable, because we're talking about basic philosophical truths and beliefs, and that how it manifests in each culture will be different. Here in the United States, in America, we are in the process of developing American Buddhism. It has changed dramatically since the time I first began practicing Buddhism here in the United States, and it will continue to change over time, till eventually we have our own unique form of Buddhism. So that's to clarify the question asked by Sherry. Thank you for your question, and hopefully that helps you understand that there are not 4 different types of Buddhism, there are basically 2, and Tibetan. So that was question number 1 from Sherry. Question number 2 is from Emma and Ali. Ali, pardon me if I didn't get your name correct, I apologize. And the question is, in my opinion, do I have a favorite part of the story of how Prince Siddhartha Gautama became Buddha? That's pretty cool. Yeah, I had to think about that one. It's all pretty neat, and it's all made up. We don't know if it's true or not. And in Buddhism, in a way, we don't really care. To us, history is not so important. What's important is what we're doing right now and what we will move into in the future. In fact, some people say that Buddhist history didn't exist until Christianity arrived in India and began its conversion practices. And then Buddhists looked around and said, wow, Christians have a pretty good story, so let's make up one of ourselves. I don't know how much of that's true or not. There was a certain history before that time of Buddhism. We can see that in archaeological finds. We can see it in the sculptures that existed. So, in answer to that question, I think, so, you know, the Buddha practiced all these austerities and he just about died from starvation. One version of the story goes is that he went to get some water and was shocked by how emaciated his figure was. His bones were showing and everything. Another version of the story is that he fell in or almost fell in and could have drowned. He might have drowned. He didn't have enough strength to get out of the water. And after all that, he goes and sits under the tree, and a young woman brings him some rice porridge, some liquid rice. And I think that's, for me, my favorite part as I think about it. And again, I have to say, I'd never been asked the question before, and so I'd never really given it any thought. Now, why do I pick that out of all the neat things that the Buddha did? I think it's because, in a way, that reminds me of the importance of community, our connection to others. Practicing in isolation is it's not what we try to do. At least in the Mahayana tradition, we are not bound to monasteries. We live and work and play in the same world as lay people do or non-Buddhists do. We work alongside many non-Buddhists. And so for us, being immersed in community is fundamental. I cannot do my Buddhist practice without depending upon the efforts of many Christians. Here in the United States, we really can't do much of anything without a dependence upon Muslims. Most of our oil for automotive purposes comes from Arab countries, which are predominantly Muslim. And if we eliminated all the Muslims, or we decided we weren't going to do business with any Muslim, then we'd be kind of stuck with nice big shiny automobiles and no fuel to run them. You know, people ask me about being vegetarian, and I say, you know, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what I am, because most of the people who built the roads and built the car and store that I shop in and supply all the products for that store are not vegetarians. So we need each other, regardless of how we might choose to practice or how we might choose to live our lives. There are many other people who are not living the same way we do. And we benefit from them, and we owe them our gratitude, even if we don't have the same practices. So I chose that also because when I first began practicing, and Emma asked me about what age I began practicing Buddhism, I started studying about Buddhism when I was about 15. I took vows and officially converted when I was 19. I was a little bit younger than the Buddha. But I had access to information that he didn't have. So, in a way, I had it kind of easy. But I remember when I first began practicing Buddhism, I was in the Marine Corps, and I'm always hungry. I eat all the time. Food is really important to me. In spite of being skinny, I do eat a lot, and I eat often. In fact, I'm constantly eating. And so I'm always hungry. And especially when I was younger in the Marine Corps, we'd have good food in the mess hall, but it wasn't enough. A couple hours later, and I'm starved again. And I remember going to meetings at night, and after the meeting was over, the Japanese women would make Japanese noodle soup, and it would be about the best thing in the world. You know, about 9:30, 10 o'clock at night, have this nice warm soup. Yeah, so I think about that soup and how nourishing it was. I also think about women, the importance of women in our lives. And of course, Emma, I'm guessing, is female, and maybe Ali as well. In fact, looks like all the names here are females. So yeah, y'all are important. We can't do it without you. And us guys, you know, I mean, we're just kind of like dead weight sometimes, right? A real pain in the neck. But anyway, so I was much younger, and food was important. So I think about the Buddha. I was never as hungry or as starved as the Buddha was. In fact, I frequently say that here in the United States, we don't know what it's like to be hungry. You know, we get a little gnawing in our stomach, and we go satisfy it by going through a drive-through or a fast food place. We, you know, even the poorest among us are, well, maybe not all the poorest among us, but many of the poorest among us are still better nourished than many people in other parts of the world. So we don't have it so bad. And in that, thinking about, you know, being aware that while I might have certain benefits, I have a certain style of living and a certain way of life that's available to me that doesn't exist for many people in the world. Traveling various countries is a good way to see how other people live. And as you may or may not know, depending on if you've traveled or not everybody lives the same highest standard as we do. And it's not that everybody needs to live like we do, but for us to be aware that we have something here that other people don't have, and to be thankful for it. And to consider, are we using too much? Do I have too much of a good thing? Could some of my excess needs, I mean, the way my needs are met in an excess sort of way, could some of that be used better by other people? Or might the whole world be better if we shared more? If we were, you know, we can buy things. Yes, we could go out and buy all sorts of things. We could consume all kinds of products. And yet, do we need to? Is that necessary? You know, what is our happiness based upon? Is it based upon excess that in a way deprives someone else of something? Because we are using up the Earth's resources at a faster pace than it renews itself or replenishes itself. We're using up things. In fact, there is a struggle going on for the acquisition of oil, for fertile land to grow crops. Who owns it, who controls it, is a discussion or a area of tension, disagreements that we might not be aware of in the news. And then when we get those products, what do we do to the land and to the people where they come from? Because it doesn't all come from here. Although we have our own discussions now with the pipeline. shale and the exploration and extraction of gas from sands and other places unheard of earlier in my life. And what impact do we have on the environment? Just to satisfy a need for something that long ago we should have done something as alternative. And now, even now, you know, the energy behind exploring alternative fuel sources has lessened because we have this cheap oil. So being aware that other people live differently and how might we, you know, help them. Now, I remember growing up, I don't know if your parents still did this to you or not, but when I was growing up, all the starving people lived in China. I think today they live someplace else, but when I was growing up, all the starving people lived in China, and you know, my parents would say I had to eat up all my food, because think about starving children in China. Of course, that never did make sense to me, because how does me eating all my food make them feel any better about starving? So I developed a little practice when I left home of always leaving something on my plate. So even though I may or may not be full, in my head I kind of have a switch that just says I'm full when there's about 2 bites left on my plate. Some people say that that's a good practice if you want to maintain your weight. I don't know, but I just do this, and now I feel full even when I'm, you know, haven't eaten all my food, and I make that as an offering, and it doesn't help the starving people wherever they're living now. It doesn't help them any more than eating at all. But I do. I am aware when I go to a restaurant. Sometimes I'll ask for just a half a portion, saying, you can charge me for the full thing, but just give me half, because I don't want to throw that food away. Because that's what will happen with any uneaten food, is it'll get thrown away. I really diverged here, haven't I? I do that. So that's my favorite part of the story, of the history of Buddhism, is him getting served that rice. Now, some people, you know, will criticize the Buddha for that, saying that he was a prostitute. Who cares? I think Christians have a story about a prostitute and Jesus. Yeah, who cares? It's still a human, and we're connected to them. And another, you know, criticism against the Buddha was that he broke his austerity practices and ate. And the other part that I like about that is that it shows the middle way. We can, of course, practice to the extreme. We can be very, you know, hardcore about our practice and do things absolutely 100% by the rule. I mean, you know, there's various. I think there was a punk group, the X. Anyway, so there are many ways we can approach that. We can be very fundamental about it. We can be very rigid in our practice. But that doesn't invite people to explore. It will attract some people who need that clear-cut set of rules to live by. But it's not conducive to cooperation, to getting along with other people. It goes back to my point of, it doesn't matter what I do, there are many people around me and I benefit from those people, and they don't do what I do, they do something else. So even if I wanted to be very rigid in my practice, so I can't be that rigid because I need unrigid people to help me out, to grow my crops, to pump that oil for my gas, for my car. So that's, I keep leaning forward because the computer wants to go to sleep, and so it's shutting down, and I want to be able to see what's going on. That covers questions number 1 And question number 2. And question number 3, again, another first question. First time I've been asked this. Which person, let's see, Emma and Ali, are y'all the only 2 people in the class? No. Y'all asked the question about which person or situation do you think was the most important to Prince Siddhartha? And in parentheses is the comment when he went outside the palace and saw the suffering, illness, and death on his 4 sightings. Yeah, that's a tough one too, one I never really considered. And I don't have an answer for that one. I think that perhaps the wise man, the person that the Buddha says, I want to be like him. I want to find the answer to suffering, to eliminate suffering from all mankind. And I think you all had someone in your story, the story of Christianity, Jesus. He wanted to take on the burden of suffering. And there are other aspects to it as well, and y'all know that better than I do. So, but from a Buddhist standpoint, suffering. We're all going to experience things in life, things that didn't go our way, didn't go as we expected, cause us sadness, grief, and sorrow, the loss of a loved one, or a change in health condition. Maybe some of you all know some young person who has been diagnosed or been told that they have an illness that has changed the course of their life. That's a lot of the work that I do in the hospital, is be with people who have received some unexpected information about their health. Maybe it's that they're going to die soon, or maybe that they have something terminal, or maybe the rest of their life will be limited in some way. We're all presented with these problems, these troubles. The degree to which we suffer, yeah, that's within our control. We have the power over suffering if we understand what causes suffering. And the first thing that causes suffering is our attachment to either our thoughts, our plans, or our expectation that things will not change, that things will always remain the same. And in this universe, nothing remains unchanged forever. I'm an example of that. I didn't always used to be this beautiful. There was a time when I didn't have any wrinkles or any little spots. I was living in Hawaii there, and I was really suffering in my 20s, going to the beach every day, laying out in the sun, swimming in the Pacific Ocean. And so I earned all these wrinkles and sunspots. But if I had expected that my skin would always be nice and taut and clear and glowing and shiny and all those qualities that are characteristic of healthy skin and young skin, if I was attached to those, then I might be quite forlorn about the appearance of all these wrinkles. But it's just, that's the way things go. So being attached to one's appearance, fortunately I never was in any disfiguring accidents or had any disfigurements. Although I did have a cut on my lip that my mom obsessed over. She said, it's going to show when you get old. Got to have that scar healed up right. Got to go get stitches. It's like, oh, that's the end of the world if that scar shows up. And it doesn't, but it could have. And nothing would have changed. So I laugh at some of this. It is serious. Maybe some of you all are maybe struggling with your appearance. Maybe you have some self-worth issues around the way you look. I can't fix that for you, but I hope that you will receive the support that you need to understand that you're beautiful. Beauty is found in billions of different ways. So, an attachment to things, this space that I live in, bought it 10 years ago, and it is not in as good a condition now as it was then. In some ways it's better because I've done improvements to it. In other ways, it's a little bit worse, like the leak in the roof. So, nothing changed, nothing remains unchanged. We're always going to face change. And learning to adjust to that, learning to be okay with that. That, we've just had an election and some people are very happy about the results and others are not so happy. And life goes on. It's not that it's not important. It's just that this is the reality. I can't change it. Something may happen to cause change, but so how do we adjust to the reality which we experience? In my work as a chaplain, one of the things I'm fascinated by is hope theory. So I like Andrew Lester's approach to understanding hope theory. And hope theory is, by some people, dismissed or discounted as not important or not relevant. And yet, I think that there is something in Andrew Lester's approach to understanding hope. And what is it that enables us, or enables the hopeful to be hopeful, and how might that be given to or taught to or presented to those people who have no hope? And there are two characteristics of hopeful people that Lester identified, and that is those people who have an ability to create a future story, a new future story based on a new set of information or a new reality. So the future that one hopes for, I was with a partner for 26 years and he died 10, 16 years ago, and that wasn't in the plans. That wasn't what I thought would happen. It wasn't what I hoped would happen. I had hoped that he'd still be alive and he and I would be enjoying our retirement together. It didn't happen. So at that point in my life, I had to come up with a new future story. And I'm still working on that, by the way. It's evolving. It's reality. And so now I get to eat what I want to eat when I want to eat it. I don't have to cook things that only he likes. He liked mashed potatoes and I like rice. He didn't like rice at all. I'm okay with mashed potatoes, but not a big potato person. I like rice. So if I wanted to eat rice, I'd always cook potatoes and rice. He didn't like green vegetables. I don't like the yellow ones. So now I only eat green vegetables. So those are maybe laughable and trivial points, but that was part of my adjustment to a new reality and how to be hopeful. The other, again, this goes back to community. The hopeful people can not only create a new future story based on the new set of information, but they also do so in community. They have a strong community that supports them in this shift from one story, one future story, to a new future story. And hopefully you all will understand that you all have one community such as that nurtures your hope, your church. I think church communities are wonderful. In Buddhism, it is one of the three treasures, the Sangha, the community of practitioners. You are hopefully with a group of people that will support you and nourish your faith and encourage you in your faith and help you when you're facing a challenge in life. And hopefully there's at least one or two people in your church community that you can really confide in and share some of your deepest fears, your deepest concerns. And of course, as I understand the story, Jesus has also said that he'll take some of that burden from you if you'll let it go and give it to him. And that's tough to do, letting go. I have people in the hospital frequently tell me, I know if I just leave it, he'll fix it or he'll take it. But I can't do that. We have attachments. So Christians have attachments, Buddhists have attachments. We're humans, we are attached to things. We're attached to the unchanging nature of the earth. We're attached to things not changing when in fact they do change. We're attached to comfort. We're attached to excess. We're attached to appearance. We're attached to all sorts of things. And a supportive community will help you either reattach to other things that are maybe better, more healthy for you, or more life-sustaining, or a new set of reality. And some of you are a little bit older now and going to be making some changes in your lives as you mature and explore the world around you and in you, identifying who you are as opposed to the son of or the daughter of, but a unique individual with your own ideas, your own processes, your own ways of taking all the input that you've received so far and sorting it all out and saying, yes, this is me, this is who I am. And good luck with that. It changes. But that's, some of you are going to be doing that. And part of that process may include abandoning your spiritual community. It's happened before and it will happen throughout all time. I encourage you to at least keep a little bit of a lifeline back to your spiritual community. Or at least don't abandon them until you find something better or a different place that will truly nurture your spirituality. It's important. One of the things, my work in the hospital, I work with geriatric patients frequently. Old people like me. Geriatric, that's the classification for 65 and older. And isolation is a key killer. Actually, worldwide, of all age groups, isolation is a #1 cause of death. How's that so? Well, we don't have people to sustain us. Frequently, people take their lives in isolation. People give up. They lose hope in isolation. They do things that are not helpful to their physicality in isolation. They don't exercise and they don't do healthy activities. There are many things that occur.
It's 20 hours.
And isolation is a bad place to be, an unhealthy place to be. And so hopefully you will keep a lifeline to this spiritual community where you are now, even if you decide that you want to explore other things. And I mean, there are some in Christianity who would consider that exploration bad or unhealthy. I'm not of that mindset. Even among Buddhists, it's important. It'll happen someday. And I do believe that if a person wants to explore, they will explore, one way or the other. And we ought to at least have a safety net for them. And that's my belief, and hopefully I don't get in trouble with the class. I do that. I get in trouble a lot. So, community is important. Hope, community, and nurturing and fostering hope. New future story, so important. And that's one of the reasons why it's one of our jewels The three jewels in Buddhism you may have read is the Dharma, that's the teaching. You could say it's your Bible. The Buddha, our teacher. I'm not sure in Christianity who that is, whether it's Jesus or God, but somebody up there is your teacher. And of course you have lots of other teachers, high school teachers and Sunday school teachers and parent teachers and yeah, lots of teachers and peer teachers. So we get taught in lots of places. So, and the Sangha, the community of practitioners, your church. And then Emma asked, at what age did I become a Buddhist monk and why? And also, so I already told you that I converted, I took my vows when I was 19. A little bit older than some of you all, although I began my exploration of Buddhism when I was 15, about the age of one or two of you, I think. And yeah, it's been an exciting life. Nothing like I think it would have been if I hadn't been Buddhist. And so Robbie, oh yeah, there is a guy, I guess. Well, not all Robbies are male. So anyway, we'll go with Robbie as a guy. And if you're not Robbie, I apologize. So anyway, Robbie asks, what is my dukkha as a Buddhist monk? Well, first off, I'm not a monk. We sort of have this thing that monks are monastic, live in a monastery in isolation, and I'm a priest. I live in community with people who are not Buddhists. I go to work at Carolina's Medical Center Mercy Hospital, work as a chaplain alongside a couple of wonderful Christian Catholic chaplains, one a former nun and one a priest, Catholic priest. So yeah, I'm definitely not monastic. So I'm a Buddhist priest. And, so the priesthood thing, when I was 23, I was living in Hawaii at that time, and I used to be at the temple all the time as opposed to our community center. So it'd be sort of like Christianity doesn't really have such things. So you've got the church, the sanctuary. That's sort of like the temple. And then you have all the other buildings, like maybe the rec room, the reception hall, whatever y'all call the community space where you have the potluck. Y'all have potluck, right? I mean, y'all aren't Lutheran, but I think y'all have potlucks too. So, so I would be at the temple all the time. Worked alongside the priests there. And at that time, I began to foster this idea that I wanted to be a priest. I wanted to be a Buddhist priest. And they weren't allowing any non-Japanese. And yeah, that's something that that's not going to happen. I'm not Japanese. I can speak the language. I know a lot about Japanese culture and art. But, here in the United States, someone comes from another country and they want to be an American, and all they have to do is, do all the stuff for citizenship, swear on the Constitution, and become a citizen, and poof, they're an American, just like that. Huh. In Japan, no, it doesn't happen. You're just not Japanese if you're not Japanese. So I'm not Japanese. That rule did change, and the denomination that I'm currently in has allowed non-Japanese to become ordained. For me, I had the requirement of speaking Japanese, and so went back to college and learned to speak Japanese. I've forgotten most of it, but I learned it. And I did all that when I was 55. So not too long ago did I become a Buddhist priest. Finished all that stuff up when I was 58, 57, I'm sorry, 57. So yeah, 10 years. I've only been a priest for 10 years. Life's got in the way. But along the way, when I went back to college to learn to speak Japanese. I finally graduated from college. It took me 40 years, but hey, I did it. And so what's my dukkha? Yeah. I think our cruelty to each other, our insensitivity to each other, that would be something that I find that triggers me. When I was younger, in 3rd grade, I was bullied, badly bullied. Eventually, some of my bulliers hung me by my neck from a tree. Had to be cut down, taken to the emergency department, and I survived. I lived. That I decided that summer that I was going to fight that internally. I was not going to let it get to me, and it was tough. I had the help of going to a new school. We moved from Pensacola to New Orleans, and at this new school, I had the opportunity to create a new identity, one that wasn't ever going to be bullied by anybody. And so you can call me all the things you want, and you know what? It doesn't change who I am inside. That's hard to do. I don't know that I could have done it. I don't know why I did it. I just knew that I had to. I knew that things around me were broken. Nobody was fixing it. It was up to me to survive. And so I did. And I hate it when someone else is being bullied or teased or called a name. That really causes me pain. Yeah, so that's I guess my main dukkha. When I was in my 30s and AIDS epidemic first started coming on, and Christians, predominant religion, shunned and turned their back on gay people for having this terrible illness. Yeah, that really upset me. I'm with people who are dying, kids in their 20s and teens, dying of an illness, and treated like lepers or worse. No medical treatment. Research is limited because our morality, what dictates us about what we will be compassionate about, said that it's not worth research. It's changed now, thankfully. But that was the attitude. It's just let them die. How can we do that to another human being? Yeah, that hurts. I was with so many young people who died. Their whole life was taken away. And I don't care what someone does sexually. It's none of my business. It is my business how we treat each other. And I hope that regardless of how you feel personally about your own life choices, that you will find a space for compassion for those people who do not agree, who do not live according to your standards. And your standards are only good for one person, and that's you. Beyond you, your standards don't amount to nothing. Just like my standards don't amount to anything beyond myself. And I try to live a good life, by example. Maybe somebody will like something and decide that they want to do that as well. And if so, I'm happy to live the way I do. And if nothing else, it's a contrast. It's a contrast to the way other people live. Not that I'm better, just that I'm different. That's another challenge, is to stay humble in one's perfection. You know, when you're perfect, it's hard to be humble, right? Well, I'm not perfect. But a lot of people think they are. I'm really in good relationship with people here at Temple Bethel, the Jewish temple out on Providence Road. And Two of my good friend rabbis are no longer there. They've gone on to other jobs. But the cantor there, Andrew Bernard, told me once that, and I kind of have this, I may have it incorrect, I don't know, but I think I've got it right. So God said he gave man the power or the ability to do three things, but not fourth. We can create. We create other humans, we build things. We can destroy. We kill people, we tear down stuff. Maybe it was only, we could do two things out of three. But we cannot judge. God didn't give us the power or the right or the authority to judge. And in Buddhism, we don't have that power, right, or authority either, because I haven't fixed my life yet, so I don't have any business in somebody else's life. Until I get my own sorted out, then I should stay here. I try to live by example, and I try not to judge other people. It's hard to do that. Yeah, it's hard not to judge somebody. You know, they're not wearing the most up-to-date fashion. You know, yeah, they don't belong in our group. They don't have the right dress on, or the right shirt, or the right shoes. So yeah, they're outsiders. They're less than we are. No. It's important stuff, fashion, especially when you're your age. I know that. When you get to be my age, you may or may not be as interested in it. A long time ago, I let go of the need to stay in fashion. My mother never understood that. You used to dress so nice. I always dress nice by my standards. So anyway, well, so that's a little bit about me, a little bit more than you asked. But I like to tell stories. Somebody, let's see, there was a note here with my dukkha about they wanted to make sure I was not made fun of and was treated well. That didn't happen. In the Marine Corps, when I was practicing Buddhism, I was harassed continually. I was challenged. I was told that I couldn't practice this Buddhism. I couldn't be a Buddhist in the Marine Corps. Oh yeah, just stuff. And I survived. I'm here, and I use them. They are what made me me. All of that bad stuff is what made me who I am. That's a lot of good stuff too. Maybe it's given me a sense of humor, or at least enough to laugh at stuff. Yeah. So I try not to take myself too personally, or too seriously rather. There are a lot more important things to do than take myself seriously. But life is serious, and I appreciate the questions, and hopefully my humor made it a little bit more easier to understand, or at least a little less boring. I thank you for the questions. If you have any follow-up questions or comments, if you'll let Sherry know, she can send them to me, and maybe I'll do another video for you. Who knows? In closing, I wish the best for each of you in your faith. It would be great if everybody was Buddhist. That's not going to happen, and it's not important. What's important, Emerson, and I'm paraphrasing Emerson here, he said that it's not important what religion we are or what religion we practice, but what really is important is how we use our spiritual teaching, how we use our religiosity, how we use our faith to make this place a better place for all people. Not just ourselves, but for everyone, for people who are different than us. So I hope that we can do that together, you in your own respective ways and me in mine. And again, I thank you very much. These are wonderful questions. Gave me an opportunity to just talk, and I enjoyed that, in case you couldn't tell. All right, I'll close it here. Wish you all the very best. Have a wonderful Sunday. Enjoy the afternoon with your family, and on that day, try to keep Christ in your heart, or God in your heart. Just be good people. All right? Okay, bye now.